warrant. So I ended up calling the Dallas, Texas Municipal Courthouse, and they confirmed that I do have a warrant and I need to come clear it as soon as possible. All right. So a little story time while I'm nursing my little one. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a nurse, right? So I got my license back in 2019 as a nurse. And that's when I got my first nursing job. I worked at a long term care facility or a nursing home. And so, coming straight out of nursing school, you basically get a preceptor, which is someone who orients you to your new job description, and she's like your resource nurse. So I got this resource nurse. Let's name her Fraud for now, and you'll figure out why her name's Fraud later on. Her name's Miss Fraud. She was my preceptor. I absolutely adored her. She seemed like she was this very noble person, and she was very resourceful. She was very knowledgeable with nursing, and I appreciate that. It kind of heightened my confidence as a nurse coming straight from nursing school. So I felt very safe working with her, and having her as like my backup, I guess you can say. So I worked with Miss Fraud for like 3 months, right? And within that 3 months, we basically built a friendship, I guess you can say. We started like having like in-depth conversations about our personal life outside of work and things like that. Like I got to know her on a different level than just a coworker. I remember one time vividly when I came to work, I was so upset because I had lost my wallet, and in my wallet was my ID and my debit card. And I remember, like, she was just trying to help me calm down and everything, and just like kind of distract my mind from that. I was just so worried because the reason I was so upset about losing that was because I was in the process of moving to another state. So I was living in Massachusetts and I was just getting married. I just got engaged and I was getting married so that I could move to Kentucky. And I needed all that information. So I was so upset. So I was upset about not having not only my debit card, but my ID and my social was all in this wallet and stuff. And this was mid shift. So I got so upset during the middle of my shift when it was time for me to go on lunch. And one, I couldn't get lunch because I didn't have my money. And secondly, I was like, oh my God, I don't have my ID and social. Like, that's a whole nother problem for itself. And I just remember her being so kind. She had brought me lunch that evening. And she was like, just tomorrow go to the RMV and get a new ID and stuff. And maybe it'll be here in time for when you move. Fast forward when I ended up, so this was in 2019, 2018. So when I moved in January of 2019 to Kentucky, me and her stayed in contact. Like we would text. Sometimes she'll call me and things like sporadically. Like sometimes we'll go months without hearing from each other. The last time I heard from this woman, Miss Fraud, was in 20. It was 2022, I believe. And it was like a decent conversation. We were just catching up. She was telling me that she was going through a divorce and how she's thinking about moving and how she's been like doing travel nursing. And she was just asking me like, hey, how's Kentucky treating you? How's married life? And all this stuff. Like we was just shooting the shits together like we normally do. And I was, so I didn't think anything of the conversation. And then I haven't heard from her since that was our last conversation, right? So during this time, um I was actually receiving these notices in the mail, these traffic notices saying that I had speeding tickets in Dallas, Texas. Remind you, I never ever lived in Dallas, Texas, never traveled to Dallas, Texas, never traveled through Dallas, Texas. The only place I've been out west was Vegas, and that was in the year 2016 with my best friend. So these letters used to come in, and there was this number. It was like a 1888 number or 1-800 number. And I called this number, and every time I called it, it was like an automated system, and it just redirected me to pay. And I could never speak to like a live person. So I was thinking that it was a spam. I'm like, it's just a spam. They just want my money, want my debit card information. So I used to always throw these letters out from the year 2020 until 2023. So yeah, in 2022, I had got like a final notice from this municipal court in Dallas, Texas, about these speeding violations. So I ended up Googling a municipal court in Dallas, Texas, to just see if they had my name in the system. So when I called and spoke to a clerk, they're telling me, no, we don't have you in our system. Like, I don't know what letters you're getting in the mail. Give me your case number. So within the case number, they're like, yes, we have this case number, but the name you're giving me is not matching up. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's because I'm giving you my married name. Maybe it's under my maiden name. So once we confirm that, she's like, oh yeah, you do have speeding tickets. You have to come down. You have to come down and pay these. And I'm telling this clerk, like, I've never been to Texas. Like, how do I have a speeding ticket? She's like, well, ma'am, you're telling me that you never been to Texas, but we have you on camera speeding, a traffic camera, and the body cam from the police that pulled you over. And I'm like, I never been pulled over in Dallas, Texas. I never been to that state a day in my life. I can't even tell you what Dallas looks like. And she's like, well, we have you on camera. And I'm like, is there a way that you can email me the original ticket? And she's like, well, yeah, of course, since you verified who you are and everything, you have your case number. So she emails me the picture of the original ticket. Yes, there's this black African American female on this ticket with glasses. And I'm like, this is not me. I get off the phone with her. I'm not talking to her at this point. I call my husband. I'm like, babe, like, I have a ticket in Dallas, Texas. And they sent me a picture of the person. And it's like under my maiden name. And my husband's like, no, there has to be a mistake. And I'm like, yeah, there has to be a mistake, right? And I was like, what can I do about it, whatever. So we ended up calling the police station here in Kentucky to file like identity theft, but they couldn't do anything about it. So I just left it alone. I was just like, I'm not dealing with this, it's too much. So last year in 2023, in the summer of 2023, I ended up giving birth to my second child, right? And within like a couple weeks postpartum, I get this warrant in the mail for my arrest in Dallas, Texas. I'm reading this, I'm bawling, crying, call my husband, like, babe, I have a warrant out for my arrest. Like, what is this? Like, I didn't do nothing, I don't get into trouble. And he's like, babe, there's no way you have, like, he didn't believe me, whatever, until he came home and seen the warrant, the notice, right? So, like, I'm not thinking straight. Ended up calling the courthouse in Dallas, Texas. I'm not even thinking about these traffic violations that I received in the past all these years. So I called them and I'm trying to confirm, like, if with this warrant. So I ended up calling the Dallas, Texas Municipal Courthouse, and they confirmed that I do have a warrant and I need to come clear it as soon as possible. And I was asking them, I was more so worried about getting pulled over in Kentucky and going to jail, but they're like, no, it's a different state, so you don't have to worry about that, but you do need to come clear this warrant. So I'm just like trying to explain to them, like, I never been to Dallas, Texas before. I don't understand how I have a warrant. What is it for? And they're like, oh, from speeding violations, you didn't failure to appear in court. Then I said, I never drove through Texas. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I used to get these letters in the mail saying that I had a speeding violation. But I just ignored them because, I thought it was a scam. It was a scam. I was being scammed. And they're like, no, that was real. And then I gave them the whole story about when I spoke with that clerk last in 2022, and she sent me a copy of the actual ticket. And they said, well, this looks like an identity theft situation. So I am going to get you over to our investigation team so you can speak with a detective. So I get in contact, I speak with a detective, and the Detective D, will call him. He within 2 hours he calls me back, right, and he's like, Torin, Miss Torin, have you lived in Massachusetts before? And I'm like, yes, I lived in Massachusetts before. And he's like, okay, have you worked at Marlboro Hills nursing home? And I'm like, yeah, I worked there. That was my first nursing job. So like naive, right, to what's about to be revealed. And he's like, yeah, and did you used to work with so and so? So and so is Mrs. Fraud. And I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, that was my first preceptor. I absolutely love her. Like, yes, why are you asking all this? He's like, well, Miss Fraud didn't love you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, honey, I think she's the one who's using your identity in Texas. I said, no way. She would never do something like that. Me and her had a good relationship this time. That he's like, mm-mm. And this is not her first time doing something like this on our records. We can't disclose that information. But yeah, she's the one who stole your identity. And I'm lost for words because like I said, like I admired this nurse. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I found a friend in her. Like, I trusted this woman. Like she didn't come across me as that type of person to steal my identity. And he's like, well, yes, she did. And there's three different ticket violations that she had in that one day. And he's like, you need to check your credit bureau to see if she's been using it in any other state, because it seemed like she's been to three different states within the past year or so. So you want to make sure that you check up on your credit, because if she'll do that, then you don't know what else she's capable of. And then he goes on to say, do you want to press charges? And at first I felt bad, and I'm like, because she has children and everything, and I thought about her kids, and I thought about, imagine me. And then I was like, she didn't think about me, and I have kids. Yeah, I want to press charges on her. And I also thought, like, she's a nurse, she works with elderly, we have access to the elderly social security numbers and all that. Imagine she's stealing their identity and fraud in their, whatever. You don't know what she could be doing. So I was like, yes, I want to. So he's like, okay, now that I got your consent that you want to press charges, we'll initiate this and put a warrant out for her arrest, and we'll take it from there. I was like, praise God. And to this day, I still can't believe she did it. Like, I still want it to be untrue, because like you know how, like, when something happens you could think back, like, oh yeah, this person was a little shady, or this person did was sneaky, or they seemed conniving. I still can't pick up any red flags, and that's how good she is. That's how much of a con she is. To this day, I cannot think of anything that threw me off with this woman while working with her for those like 3 to 4 months. And come to find out, I still have a warrant in Texas, and it's 2024. And so I pressed charges last year. I still have a warrant because I called to check up on it, and what my Detective D had told me, that they can't they can't go after her. She has to get in trouble, and then that's how, like, if she get pulled over again, then that's how they'll find her, and then that's how they'll process her through the courts and stuff. And they'll charge her, like, if she gets pulled over or get into any trouble. They can't just she's It's not like an emergency thing, basically. So I still have a warrant out in my maiden name in Dallas, Texas, from Mrs. Fraud, um, who I thought was this noble woman. Yes, so I still have a warrant out in Dallas, Texas, until she either gets pulled over or get into some type of trouble. So I don't plan on going to Dallas, Texas. Um, and I just can't. I'm baffled. Like, I thought she was like a decent person, and she's not. And the fact earlier, remember I told you how I lost my ID. I thought I did. I wonder if she stole it that day, and that's how she got access to my ID, because she handed the police officer my ID, my hard copy ID from Massachusetts. So that day that I went to work in the middle of my shift, when I went to go get my ID and stuff, I wasn't crazy. I didn't misplace my wallet. She took it. She stole it and just laughed in my face and smiled in my face, and probably brought that dinner with my debit card. she probably used my debit card to get it for me, which is so crazy. So, yeah, I am a victim of identity theft. So watch out for your coworkers, your classmates, and the people you call your friend or the people that inspire you so much.